1 year ago, with I suppose a lot of the folks that are here in this room, we hopped on a flight from Lisbon to Miami. We had all kind of learned on that flight that FTX had a multi-billion-dollar hole of customer deposits on that exchange. Backpack had lost $14.5 million on that flight. That was about 88% of our operating capital. That was a pretty devastating moment. Yeah, it was devastating for us. It was devastating, I think, for a lot of people. But by the time we had gotten off that flight, we more or less made the decision that, well, no matter what had happened, no matter how bad it got, no matter how many people asked us to leave Solana, as long as Raj and Toli were still here, as long as those guys kept coding, we would keep coding. It's kind of as simple as that, to be honest. Yeah, I think for us and for a lot of people, it was really a defining moment, especially for the network. And so we kept coding. We launched Backpack. We launched Mad Lads. We saw some success. But while the problems precipitated by FTX in the crypto industry were having a calamitous effect on the entire industry, the traditional financial industry was having problems of its own. The banking sector started to collapse. And although the problems in the banking sector were very different from the problems precipitated by FTX and others, the underlying theme was more or less the same. Our financial infrastructure is weak. This is a theme echoed throughout this conference. And the fact of the matter is that blockchains solve a lot of this. People like to spread the meme that blockchains are a solution looking for a problem. But the fact of the matter is that a verifiable, unforgeable, auditable linear log of transactions that can be checked by anywhere in the world is purpose-built for financial transactions. Not to state the obvious, but it's easy to forget that Bitcoin was birthed out of the 2008 financial crisis. And now we see Solana quite literally building a parallel financial system. And so blockchains really do solve this problem. And so this leads us to X. Now, we've seen permissionless crypto networks to great success adopt blockchain technology. We've yet to see any large financial institutions effectively integrate it into its core. Sure, we've seen L2s pop up around some of the various crypto exchanges floating around, but none of them have integrated it into their core business. And so that's exactly what we're going to do. X stands for exchange. We're building the Backpack exchange. Well, kind of. You see, exchanges tend to be thought of as these monolithic products. Normally, there's trading front and center. And trading's important, don't get me wrong. But ultimately, Backpack is a wallet first and foremost. What we care about are applications. We care about XNFTs. We care about the Solana developer ecosystem. But in the same way, it doesn't really make any sense to have multiple different wallet apps that do the exact same thing, but on different crypto networks. They told me I'm supposed to stand in between these two lines, but it feels a little restrictive. It also doesn't really make much sense to have multiple different apps that do the exact same thing, but with different custody solutions. And so for that reason, we are taking the Backpack wallet and we're merging it with the Backpack exchange, a single app with everything in it. Now we're doing this on mobile, but we're also doing it on the web. And not only are we doing it on the web, but don't forget we have the extension. And so with all of these things together, we are providing the full spectrum of custody all inside of the Backpack app. On one side of the spectrum, we have self-custody, we have the wallet, we have a fully privacy-preserving key management system. We do not track wallets whatsoever. The wallet is completely client-side. On the other side of the spectrum, we have the exchange. We have a custody solution. We have all the benefits and all the affordances given by a mainstream financial institution. And it's worth reiterating that, although we offer these two solutions, neither interferes with the integrity of the other. The wallet is a wallet is a wallet. Fully privacy-preserving, fully client-side, zero tracking whatsoever. There's no link to the exchange. And on the other side of the spectrum, the exchange is a regulated financial institution. Neither interferes with the other. But building an exchange is very difficult. There's a ton of different components that go into building an exchange. So if we're going to do it, let's do it right. Now, there's a lot to talk about in exchange infrastructure. I'm going to put trading aside for a moment, and I want to talk about two things. The first thing I want to talk about is global banking and fiat rails. The goal of global banking is very simple, for us at least. We want to take any fiat currency anywhere in the world, convert it into crypto as fast as humanly possible, with minimum latency and with minimum fees, and get it onto the blockchain as fast as we can. Now, the reason why this is so challenging is because it's not really an engineering problem. There's some engineering involved, but it's predominantly a compliance problem. An unsolved puzzle piece that tends to be extremely difficult for a lot of us to solve. And so what we've done over the past few months is we went out, and I'm a little biased here, but we assembled an incredible compliance team, some of the best in the industry. And what do? We threw them in a room, we locked the door, we threw away the key. We didn't actually do any of that, but we did give them a map of the world. We color-coded it country by country and created a plan. Do we buy, do we build, or do we partner? And we've made an extraordinary amount of progress getting licenses around the world. We've secured our anchor licenses, if you've been checking Twitter, with licenses all around the world, most recently in Dubai. And by the end of 2024, we expect to have 95% of the world's GDP covered by our compliance solution. And so what we're building with Backpack is not just an exchange, although we are building an exchange. What we're really building is a next-generation crypto-native financial institution. Now, the reason why this is important is maybe a little subtle. If we're going to live in this world with two independent and parallel economies, we have the traditional economy on one hand, and we have the parallel financial system being built here on Solana on the other, well, we need an institution that can bridge the two. There's an extraordinary amount of value in traditional finance. And the Backpack Exchange will be the connective tissue, if you will, to be able to bring a lot of that value, tokenize it, and put it on chain. That is more or less our ultimate goal. And so that's enough about compliance. Let's talk about custody. Now, in the context of custody, what I really want to talk about is not custody itself. Maybe this isn't the best slide. But what I really want to talk about is this property that people like to call computational integrity. Computational integrity is very important. The TLDR is that you can look at the state of a ledger. You can take a look at the state of any financial system and trust that it's correct. Trust that the balances are correct. Trust that the application is telling you the right thing. And, well, we all know that blockchains solve this. This is exactly what blockchains do. And so when building financial institution infrastructure, we can apply a lot of these same techniques and apply it to building these systems. So there's three things I want to talk about. I'll go over them pretty quickly, but we're going to back out computational integrity on the exchange. So the first thing I want to talk about is the execution layer. One of the big things that we want here is no single point of failure. And the way we achieve this is kind of with a very basic technique that every blockchain uses. It's kind of CS 101. The distributed systems people like to call this state machine replication, and it's very simple. Right, transactions go in, events go out. You get some consensus over the state, and we all agree that things are humming along. But the thing about crypto exchanges is that, well, they operate over crypto networks. And crypto networks, on the one hand, are amazing. You have censorship resistance, you have verifiability, you have instant global settlement at the speed of light. But on the other hand, this is what makes them so challenging. This is why building exchanges is very scary. Because when that withdrawal goes out, it's game over. So that withdrawal has to be correct. And this is why computational integrity is so important when building an exchange. We want to consider situations like, you have Alice, Bob, and Carol here, but suppose Alice and Bob are both malicious. Suppose they're trying to steal all of the money on the exchange. So we have a malicious transaction goes in. Maybe it's a withdrawal. Events go out. Alice and Bob try to steal all the money. But Carol's an honest actor. Maybe an Alice and Bob just got hacked. What we want is for Carol to be able to reject the transaction unilaterally. We want Carol to be able to save the day. And it turns out if you build your exchange like this, you can have this honest one property for your exchange. And it all comes down to having no single point of failure. It all comes down to having this state machine replication. So that's kind of a no-brainer. Next thing we want to talk about is the assets themselves, proof of reserves. This is kind of table stakes for building a new exchange. A lot of people talk about it. There's billions of dollars floating around in the crypto exchange industry, and there's really no excuse to not have a fully auditable, verifiable proof of reserves. And so we're working with Auto Security, one of Solana's most well-known auditors, to bring to market some novel research to have some proof of reserves on the exchange. What we want is to be able to go to the exchange and every day be able to take snapshots of our balances and just look at them. What are my balances on the exchange? We want to have proofs every day, snapshots of the state, verified and checkpointed on Solana. We want to do this directly from the self-custodial wallet, where you can actually look at the code, go download it, and run it yourself. So proof of reserves is kind of table stakes, but there's no reason to not use an exchange without proof of reserves these days. So the last thing I want to talk about is the wallet. So there's a bunch of stuff to talk about here. I don't want to talk about wallets from the perspective of custodying assets on-chain, although that's a super important and valuable topic. What I want to talk about is wallets from the perspective of authentication from the exchange. So if we go back to this diagram, you have this exchange network, if you will. You have Alice, Bob, and Carol. Again, transactions go in, events go out, and everything's fine and dandy. But there's an obvious problem here. The transactions here can be spoofed. And so we have a wallet. We have ED25519 key pairs. We have Backpack. Let's use it. So every transaction going through the exchange is actually signed with your wallet. Every exchange validator verifies it, and this is exactly what a blockchain does, right? And so when we have this, we have a globally authenticated linear log of transactions, the exact same thing that a blockchain gives you. And we have all three of these things that come together. We have the wallet that gives you the linear log. We have the execution layer with state machine replication. And then finally, we have proof of reserves, where we take snapshots of the state, create a zero-knowledge proof, and checkpoint it to the blockchain every single day. And so all this stuff kind of comes together to create next-generation financial infrastructure. And whether it's a centralized exchange like Backpack or a decentralized exchange like Orca or Phoenix, all of these exchanges have not only financial auditability, but actually cryptographic security. And these are the standards that we should be holding ourselves to. So this next slide is supposed to be like a joke, sex on the blockchain, like, I don't know, sex on the beach or something. But I had to submit my slides. And I couldn't back out the joke. But here's the slide. So yeah, thanks for listening. That's all I got, and have a great rest of your conference. Yeah.